Welcome to the Soul Shed. Here, simple stories open ancient doors. I am Eden Lin, light-bearer, keeper of stories, watcher of the inner flame. For those who feel lost, walk with me. Your soul already knows the way. The year that waits to begin. A Soul Shed story. They say this story is older than memory, older than the roads, older than the names we gave things. It was told by firelight, passed from mouth to ear, from one quiet heart to another, and it begins in a time when people had forgotten how to leave. There was once a people who lived with invisible weight upon them, not chains you could see, but the kind that live inside your chest, the kind that tell you, stay where you are, even if it hurts. And so they stayed. Not because they wanted to, but because leaving felt impossible. Then one night, something shifted. No thunder, no great sign, just a quiet knowing that moved through them like a whisper. You can go. Some didn't hear it. Some were too afraid. But others stood up, and they walked, not knowing where the path would end, only knowing they could no longer remain. They say that night the sky was full. Not dark, not empty, but full. As if everything hidden had stepped forward to be seen, and under that fullness they crossed from what held them into what they did not yet understand. Years passed, and the story should have ended there. But it didn't, because leaving is only the first half of a story. There came another time, another silence, another moment where everything seemed to fall still. And in that stillness, there was one who carried something different. Not power, not control, but a kind of presence that made people feel seen, as if nothing in them needed to hide any more. They walked among the people, not above them, spoke little, but when they did, something in others softened. Not because they were told to change, but because they felt they could. But the world does not always understand what it cannot control. And so, one day, that presence was taken and laid into silence. The kind of silence that feels like an ending. And for a moment, everything stopped. The people who had once found the courage to leave now stood still again, as if the path had closed, as if the story had run out. But the story wasn't finished. It never is where it looks like it ends, because after the stillness, something impossible happened, not loudly, not in a way that demanded attention, but quietly, like the first light that touches the edge of morning. What had been laid down rose, not the same as before, but not gone either. Different, alive in a way that couldn't be taken again. And around that time, the world itself began to change. The cold loosened its grip, the ground softened. Small things began to push through the surface, not forced, not rushed, just ready. And those who remembered the story began to understand something they hadn't before. The leaving, the loss, the silence. None of it was separate. It was all part of the same movement. They stopped marking the beginning of the year by numbers carved into stone. Instead, they watched for something else. They watched for the moment when the night felt full. The world fell quiet, and life returned without being asked. And when it came, they would say to one another, "This is it. The year has begun again." No announcement, no celebration loud enough to disturb it. Just a quiet knowing that what once held them no longer could, and what once ended had made space for something new. And it is said, if you are still enough, you can feel it too. Not on a date, not on a page, but in the moment, something inside you whispers, you can begin now. Thank you for listening to The Soul Shed. Until next time, take care of your light, and when it feels dim, come back. We'll be here, because the soul remembers what the mind forgets.